Hi again. This next tale I'm going to share is another one from the nursing home. This happened when I was still on night shift working with my friend Amy. And like I told you before, like with Mel, we used to talk about ghost stories all the time and he'd tease us and everything. Well, we had another gentleman that would get up. He was an old trucker, so he would always be up at 4 o'clock in the morning, come out for his first coffee. And his name was Leo. I remember there was one time that we were sitting out there, we were having our coffee breaks. That's usually when we have our midnight, or not midnight, but night shift meal was around 4 o'clock, kind of like a really early breakfast, I guess. Because then we started started to make breakfast for the residents, and that was the only time that we had to really sit down. So he would often come out and we would talk. But this one time he come out and we were talking about ghosts, and he was a really jokey, teasy type of guy too. Like he loved to tease us. And he sat down and he goes, "What are you girls talking about?" And we kind of just, "Oh, nothing." And he goes, "You guys talked about ghosts?" And I remember I stopped for a second, I looked at Amy, and we didn't want to tell him because we knew he was just going to tease us and tell us we're being idiots. But so I said, "Well, if you're going to tease us, but we're talking about ghosts." And he goes, "Oh, I'm not going to tease you. I wanted to talk about my ghost stories here." And we just we were shocked because he's not the type that really seemed to believe in stuff like that, I guess. I don't know. He was native, so maybe. I don't know. But anyway, that was one thing he said. He said, "Since I moved in here, I've seen 2 ghosts, and I haven't told anybody because I don't want anyone to think that I'm going nuts." And he proceeded to tell us his stories. And the one time, he said, just after he moved into the lodge, like I think he was 78 when he moved in, so he was still pretty spry, like for an older gentleman. And he was quite the ladies' man. Like very, very charming. Very charming. Actually, it's funny because he ended up moving out with his home care worker. He's that charming. He charmed her into moving him into her house. And they kind of fell in love. And anyway, they live together now. But when he was in the lodge, he said to us that he had 2 incidents. One was when he just moved in, which was about the time that I had started. I think he moved in about a week before I started working there. He said he had finished breakfast the one day and he'd gone back to where his room was, and he was just, like, there was a couple of chairs where they kept newspapers just outside of his room, and he was sitting there reading the paper, and he saw this woman come over and chat him up, well, he was chatting her up. And they were chatting back and forth and sitting on the chairs, like wing chairs, just outside of his room. And he said to her, he goes, "Well, come on in. I just live right here." And that's the one thing he said. He'd never seen her before, which was really kind of weird. So he thought she was there visiting someone or there to visit someone. But maybe he figured that whoever it was wasn't awake yet, because it was something like 8 o'clock in the morning, I think, something like that. So he said, "Well, come on into my room here and I'll make coffee for us." And she said, "Oh, okay." And then she followed him in. And he said he closed the door behind her and then walked ahead of her to go turn the kettle on. And he was talking the whole time. And, what the heck? He even said her name. What the hell was her name again? Oh, I think it was Mabel. Oh, shoot, I can't remember now. But yeah, he said she even introduced to him by name. I can't remember what her name was. I want to say Mabel, but I don't think it is. Anyway, he went, turned the kettle on, then kept talking, turned around. There was nobody there. So yeah, he was just kind of, "Oh my God, where did she go? Like, he thought maybe she went into the bathroom because he hadn't heard the door open again or anything. And, like, the kitchen is right to the left. Like, it's just a little kitchenette just to the left of the sitting area where he'd left her. So, yeah, like, that kind of really puzzled him, you know, because, yeah, he was kind of shaken up. Like, he went back outside and he looked around and she wasn't in the bathroom. Went outside into the hallways, looked down both hallways, and there was nobody around. So, yeah, that was his first incident. Oh, her name was Nellie, not Mabel. Nellie. Yeah, she introduced herself as Nellie, he said. So, yeah, that was his Nellie story. And I remember clear as day, he looked at us, he goes, "You guys don't think I'm nuts, do you?" And, you know, he's the type of guy that he would never willingly admit things like this. So you kind of had to, I know, it was completely believable. I had no doubt that I believed it. There was another incident that happened probably about a month after he'd been in there, a month or two, he said. That was during the daytime too. While Amy and I were working night shift at that time. And he said, coming back, probably after lunchtime, he said, he came back to the corner where his room was. Like, his room was the second from the corner, turning down a long corridor, long hallway. And he was just about to put his key in his lock, and he looked up, and he saw a woman with her hair in a bun, and a young boy with her, and they were down by the laundry room, down at the other end of the hallway. And we call that the shuffleboard area because it was kind of like, there was a laundry room on one side, and then there was like a little sitting area outside of the laundry room that we had a shuffleboard set up. And he kind of, you know, Leo was a very friendly person. Like, like I said, he charmed his home care worker into moving him in. You know, he's a really charming ladies' man. That's what I always think of him. He's a ladies' man. So, of course, he went walking down there. He said he walked down, took about 5 minutes to walk all the way down there. And just as he got to them to say hi and introduce himself, he said they completely disappeared in front of his eyes. And yeah, like he thought he was seeing things. Like, you know, he was shocked. But, you know, like there was no one else around. They were all in their rooms again. This was after lunchtime, so everyone was kind of putzing around in their rooms waiting for tea time later on. And yeah, he said no one else was around, and this woman and her son, probably about 8 or 9 years old, just disappeared. So yeah, those were his stories. So yeah. The interesting part about that area, Amy and I, plus another young girl on night shift, she was probably about 19 at the time, we all had incidents down at that corner during the night. My incident was when one person was cooking in the kitchen, the other night shift person was wandering around cleaning and stuff, like dusting and everything. And probably about 2 o'clock in the morning the one night, I went down to that area and I was dusting the sitting area and dusting the laundry. And then all of a sudden I can hear what sounded like ladies chatting. The best way I could describe it, it sounded almost like a soap opera, you know, where they're talking back and forth, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. So what I thought at first was someone's TV was on. And although we can't hear the TVs from room to room, you can hear them through the doorway. So I went around every resident's room around that area and listened really carefully at the door. And there was no TV on anywhere around there. And I looked outside, there was nothing. Like, it was 2 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday or Thursday night. So there was nothing around, no one was around. But yet, yeah, this noise just kept coming. And it was most prominent through the laundry room. So yeah, I don't know what that was, but it freaked me out enough that I started to wear headphones at night when I went around cleaning. There was another night, several months later, that Amy was walking around. I was doing muffins in the kitchen, and she was doing the cleaning, walking around. But she said this time, I think it was, yeah, I think she was just doing her walk around checks, because we go around every hour just to make sure everything's okay and everything's locked, and find out if anyone's needing anything, like you can hear from inside the room. And she said she was just walking along, listening to her music, and then all of a sudden she looked up just as she was coming to that shuffleboard corner, and she said it was like this blue mist that she just ended up walking right through. It was like walking through fog. She's from Cape Breton, so yeah, she knows fog. And she said it was just like walking through a fog, and it just dissipated around her. So yeah, she more or less ran the rest of her tour, and I had to go with her the rest of the night every time we had to go around to do the checks, because that really freaked her right out. The story about, the young girl that also had a story on a night shift. It was a different night. I think Amy was working with her, but we were told, like I said in the Mel video, that we were told not to talk about the ghost stories. It's not that our manager didn't believe us. She definitely believed us. She just said, it's hard to keep night shift, for obvious reasons. And she said she didn't want us scaring anyone. So we didn't tell anyone other than each other about these stories that were going on. And this one night, I remember Amy got off shift and she phoned me in the morning. She said, "You will not believe what happened." And I said, "What?" And then she said, "Well, the shuffleboard area, so-and-so, I don't want to say her name. I can't remember, actually. It's just a young girl that was there for a little while. She was going around dusting and cleaning, and she said she saw, coming down the one hallway looking towards the shuffleboard area, in that little sitting area, there was a chair right there, and she said she saw a woman with a tight bun in her hair sitting there. And then as she come closer to find out who she was, because, on night shift, a lot of times these young girls that haven't been there for long don't know any of the daytime people, like the residents. So she thought it was just a resident, but as she got closer, the lady got up and just faded away. So yeah, I don't know, there's a ghost around that shuffleboard too. So yeah, that's another story. We'll talk to you later.